The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never known such fear. 12,000 delegates from across the known universe sat in their floating seats, and not one of them could speak. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed the advancing fleet of the Vorath Empire. 2 million warships moved like a dark cloud across the star map, swallowing system after system. High Arbiter Kel stood at the central platform. He was old, even by the standards of his species that lived for 10,000 years. He had seen wars before. He had seen empires rise and fall, but he had never seen anything like this. The Vorath have taken the Outer Rim, he announced, his voice heavy with exhaustion. They have destroyed 14 civilizations in the past month alone. Our combined fleet numbers 800,000 ships. We cannot win a direct battle. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates screamed at each other. Some called for surrender. Others demanded war. A few simply wept, knowing their worlds would soon burn. Ambassador Taller watched the chaos from his seat in the upper gallery. He was one of the oldest beings in the council, a member of a species that had witnessed the birth and death of stars. He had spent his long life studying other species, learning their histories, their strengths, their weaknesses, and he knew something that the rest of the council did not. He knew about Earth. Taller rose from his seat and floated down to the central platform. The chamber slowly fell silent. When Taller spoke, everyone listened. He had earned that respect over millions of years. There is one option we have not considered, Taller said. His voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the massive hall. There is one species that might turn the tide of this war. Kel looked at him with desperate hope. Who? We have contacted every member of the council. No one has the military strength to face the Vorath. They are not members of the council, Taller said. They are newcomers. They have been part of the galactic community for only 60 years. We have largely ignored them because their technology seemed primitive, their territory small, their influence meaningless. Who are they? Kel demanded. Taller paused. He looked around the chamber at the thousands of species represented there. Many of them were predators. Many of them had conquered other worlds. Many of them considered themselves the most dangerous beings in the universe. They were wrong. Humans, Taller said. The species from the planet called Earth. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Delegates did not argue. They did not debate. They ran. Hundreds of them fled from the chamber as if Taller had announced a plague. Others collapsed in their seats, their bodies shutting down from pure fear. The remaining delegates sat in stunned silence, their faces pale, their hands trembling. Kel stared at the chaos around him. He had never seen the council react this way. Not to the Vorath. Not to any threat in recorded history. I do not understand, he said slowly. Why does the mention of this species cause such terror? They are newcomers. They have a small fleet. Their world is unremarkable. Taller walked to the holographic display and changed the image. The Vorath fleet disappeared, replaced by a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth, he said. Let me tell you about the humans. He began to speak, and as he did, the remaining delegates grew more and more afraid. Humans evolved on a death world, Taller explained. Their planet has extreme temperatures, violent weather, and is covered with predators. They should have died out millions of years ago. Instead, they conquered their world. They did not simply survive. They dominated. He changed the display to show images from human history. They discovered how to split the atom. This is the fundamental force that holds matter together. They used this knowledge to build weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. Then they pointed these weapons at each other. Taller paused. They did this before they even left their own planet. They lived for decades with enough weapons to end their own species, and they did not use them. They chose not to. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. They created diseases in laboratories. Taller continued. Plagues that could kill millions. Then they created cures. They poisoned their own atmosphere, then fixed it. They drove thousands of species to extinction, then brought some back. They reached their moon by strapping themselves to controlled explosions and launching themselves into space. Kel shook his head. This sounds like madness. It is madness, Taller agreed. But it is a madness that works. They consume poison for pleasure. They drink alcohol, which destroys their organs. They eat capsaicin, which causes pain. They drink caffeine, which is a powerful stimulant that would kill most species. They do this daily. They call it breakfast. Surely this is exaggeration, said a delegate from a peaceful species near the galactic core. Taller turned to face him. They keep apex predators in their homes. Creatures with fangs and claws that could kill them in seconds. They call them pets. They sleep next to them. They let these predators near their children. The delegate fell silent. Their children, Taller said, his voice dropping lower. Their children play games that simulate war. They pretend to kill each other before they can read. They watch entertainment that depicts violence, death, and destruction. They find it fun. Kel raised a hand. Enough. I understand they are unusual. But the Vorath have 2 million ships. What can humans do against such numbers? Talor smiled. But there was no warmth in it. The Vorath fight to conquer. Humans fight to survive. There is a difference. The Vorath will accept surrender. Humans do not understand the concept. In their history, surrounded armies have fought to the last soldier. Losing sides have burned their own cities rather than let enemies take them. They have a saying. They would rather die on their feet than live on their knees. He turned back to the display and showed one final image. It was a human soldier, small and fragile-looking compared to most galactic species. But the soldier's eyes held something that made every delegate in the chamber look away. If we bring Earth into this war, Taller said, we might defeat the Vorath. But we will unleash something far more dangerous. The humans will learn that there are other civilizations among the stars. They will learn about our technology. They will learn about our weaknesses. And humans are very good at learning. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Kel called for a vote. The result was nearly unanimous. 11,847 votes against contacting Earth. Only 12 delegates voted in favor. The council had decided they would rather face the Vorath alone than awaken the humans. But fate had other plans. Far across the galaxy, Warlord Rix sat in his command ship, listening to the intercepted transmission. His lipless mouth curved into a smile. A species that terrifies the entire council, he said to his generals. A species they fear more than they fear us. I must meet these humans. His generals exchanged nervous glances, but none of them dared to argue. Rix had conquered 1,000 worlds. He had never known defeat. He did not understand fear. He was about to learn. 3 months passed since the Galactic Council's vote. The war had gone badly for them. The Vorath won battle after battle, pushing deeper into council space. 17 major star systems had fallen. Billions of beings had died or fled their homes. The council retreated toward the galactic core, hoping distance might save them. Earth knew nothing of this. Humans went about their daily lives, unaware that a great war raged across the stars. They built their colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. They mined asteroids for metals. They argued about politics and watched entertainment and raised their children. They had no idea that they were being watched. Captain Tejo commanded the patrol vessel Bagdu, a small ship assigned to watch the outer edges of the Sol system. It was boring work. Nothing ever happened this far from Earth. Tejo spent most of his shifts reading history books and drinking coffee that his crew said could melt metal. Lieutenant Hana served as his tactical officer. She was young, smart, and obsessed with military history. She could tell you about every battle humans had ever fought, from ancient sword fights to the Martian colony rebellion. Tejo valued her knowledge, even if her lectures sometimes put him to sleep. On the day everything changed, Hana noticed something strange on her sensors. "Captain," she said, her voice uncertain, "I am detecting multiple contacts near Jupiter. 50 vessels. Unknown design." Tejo set down his coffee. "Unknown? Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. They do not match any human ship design. They do not match anything in our database." She paused, her face growing pale. "Sir, I think these are alien ships." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member stopped what they were doing. Alien life had been confirmed decades ago, but Earth had never had direct contact with another species. The galactic community kept humans at a distance, trading through intermediaries, never allowing face-to-face meetings. Now 50 alien ships had entered their home system without permission. Taeho's training told him to observe and report. He was supposed to gather information and send it to Earth Command. He was not supposed to engage. He had 42 crew members and one small ship. The alien fleet could destroy him in seconds. He opened a communication channel anyway. Unknown vessels. This is Captain Taeho of the Earth Defense Force vessel Baekdu. You have entered human space without authorization. Identify yourselves immediately, or you will be considered hostile. His crew stared at him. They were outnumbered 50-1, and their captain was threatening the unknown fleet. Some thought he was brave. Others thought he was insane. Most thought he was both. The response came quickly. A harsh, growling voice filled the bridge. Human vessel. I am General Vorn of the Vorath Empire. Your space belongs to us now. Your planet belongs to us. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be quick. Lieutenant Hana quickly searched for information on the Vorath. She found nothing in Earth's databases. These aliens were completely unknown to humanity. Taeho did not hesitate. General Vorn, I am going to say this once. Leave our system now, or there will be consequences. Vorn laughed. The sound was ugly and cruel. You are one ship against 50. You have no allies. No one is coming to save you. Let me show you what happens to species that refuse the Vorath. On the view screen, one of the Vorath ships fired a massive weapon at Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The moon's surface cracked. Ice and rock exploded into space. In seconds, a celestial body that had existed for billions of years was reduced to rubble. That was a demonstration, Vorn said. Your planet will be next unless you surrender. The bridge was silent. The crew had just watched a moon die. They understood now that these aliens had technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. Logic said they should surrender. Mathematics said they could not win. Lieutenant Hana pulled up historical records on her screen. Taeho glanced at her. What are you looking for? Historical precedent, sir, she replied. I am checking to see if any human nation in recorded history has ever surrendered after a first strike. She searched for several seconds. Then she looked up at Taeho with a small smile. No, sir. We never surrender after being attacked first. We typically escalate. Taeho nodded. He opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Yuna answered within seconds. She was the Supreme Commander of United Earth Forces, a woman who had risen through the ranks during humanity's most difficult internal conflict. She was known for being calm under pressure and absolutely ruthless when provoked. Report, she said. Admiral, 50 alien vessels have entered the Sol system. They destroyed Europa. They are demanding our surrender. Taeho kept his voice steady. Requesting permission to engage, Admiral Yuna was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was cold as ice. They destroyed Europa. They destroyed our moon. Yes, Admiral, launch the Hammer Protocol. All ships in range, all assets, full response. Show these creatures what happens when you attack Earth. The next 6 hours changed the galaxy forever. Earth had a secret. During the years of peace, while humans explored space and built colonies and pretended to be civilized, they had also prepared for war. Hidden weapons platforms floated in asteroid fields. Missile batteries lay buried under lunar dust. Ships with experimental weapons waited in the darkness between planets. Humans had learned long ago that peace never lasted forever. They prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. This was simply how they thought. The Vorath had no warning. One moment, they were celebrating their easy victory. The next moment, weapons fire came from everywhere. Asteroids that had seemed dead suddenly came alive with missiles. Ships that had appeared to be cargo vessels revealed hidden cannons. Even the debris from Europa became a weapon, as Earth ships used gravity to redirect the rubble toward the Vorath fleet. General Vorn screamed orders, but his ships were already dying. Human weapons were crude compared to Vorath technology, but there were so many of them. Earth had spent centuries learning how to kill. They were very good at it. Within 3 hours, 30 Vorath ships were destroyed. Within 5 hours, only 12 remained. Vorn ordered a retreat, but human ships blocked every escape route. They were not interested in letting the enemy go. Captain Tejo led the final assault on Vorn's command ship. His vessel was damaged, leaking atmosphere, and half his crew was injured. He attacked anyway. "Sir, we should pull back," Hana suggested. "We have won." Tejo shook his head. "We have not won until they cannot threaten us again. Finish it." Vorn was captured alive. His last transmission to Warlord Rix echoed across space, intercepted by 100 different species. They fought like they wanted to die. They fought like death was winning. "Do not come here. Do not wake them. They are not like us. They are not like anyone." The message reached the Galactic Council. High Arbiter Kell received the news in his private chamber. He sank into his chair, his ancient body trembling. "The humans won," he whispered. 50 ships against their entire system. And the humans won. Ambassador Taller stood beside him, his face grim. "Yes. And now the Vorath know about Earth. Now Warlord Rix will seek revenge. The war has come to humanity, whether they wanted it or not." Kell looked at Taller with fear in his eyes. "What have we done?" "It is not what we have done," Taller replied. "It is what the Vorath have awakened. And I am not sure even we understand what that means." On Earth, the news of the battle spread quickly. There was no panic. There was no fear. Instead, there was something else, something that the rest of the galaxy would never understand. Humanity was excited. They had enemies among the stars. Finally, something worth fighting for. 1 month after the Battle of Jupiter, Warlord Rix declared total war on Earth. His announcement echoed across the galaxy. He promised to burn every human world, kill every human being, and erase their species from existence. He was angry. The Vorath had never lost a battle before, and Rix blamed the humans for embarrassing him. The Galactic Council watched with horror. They had tried so hard to keep Earth out of the war. Now their worst fear was coming true. Humans and Vorath would fight, and the galaxy would suffer the consequences. High Arbiter Kell made a desperate decision. He sent Ambassador Taller to Earth. Perhaps the humans could be convinced to surrender. Perhaps the slaughter could be stopped before it began. Perhaps there was still hope. Taller arrived on Earth expecting to find a planet in chaos. He expected panic, fear, and desperation. The Vorath had 2 million ships. Earth had fewer than 10,000. By any reasonable calculation, humanity was doomed. What he found instead terrified him more than any Vorath fleet. The streets were calm. People walked to their jobs, ate their meals, and lived their lives. But underneath the calm, something was happening. Recruitment centers had lines stretching for miles. Factories that made civilian goods were being converted to produce weapons. Engineers worked through the night designing new ships. Scientists created new weapons. Teachers trained children in survival skills. And everywhere, humans were singing. Old war songs from centuries past mixed with new songs written just that week. They sang about glory, about sacrifice, about victory. They sang about dying for something that mattered. Taller had seen many species prepare for war. He had never seen one that seemed happy about it. He met with Admiral Yuna at United Earth Command, a massive facility buried deep under the mountains of Korea. Dr. Nari, a xenobiologist who had spent her career studying alien life, served as translator and cultural advisor. Sergeant Wubin, the most decorated soldier in Earth's history, stood guard by the door. "Thank you for meeting with me," Taller said carefully. "I come with a message from the Galactic Council." Admiral Yuna nodded. She was a small woman with gray hair and cold eyes. Her uniform was simple, without decoration. She did not need medals to prove her worth. "Speak your message," she said. Taller took a deep breath. "The Council urges humanity to consider surrender. The Vorath Empire has 2 million warships. Your fleet is tiny in comparison. If you fight, you will lose. Millions of your people will die. Your colonies will burn. Your civilization will end." He paused, hoping his words would have some effect. They did not. "Surrender now," he continued, "and the Council will negotiate on your behalf. The Vorath may accept occupation instead of extermination. Your species could survive, even if your freedom does not." Admiral Yuna said nothing for a long moment. Then she turned to Dr. Nari. Explain to our guest why we will not surrender. Dr. Nari smiled. She had been waiting for this. She activated a holographic display that showed images from human history. Ambassador Taller, let me tell you about my species, she said. Humans do not surrender when outnumbered. We dig in. We fight harder. We make the enemy pay for every inch of ground and blood. The display showed ancient battles. Soldiers with swords standing against armies 10 times their size. Cities burning rather than falling to invaders. Ships sinking with their crews still fighting. At Thermopylae, 300 warriors held back an army of hundreds of thousands. At Masada, 1,000 people chose death over slavery. At Stalingrad, soldiers fought building by building, room by room, until the invaders broke. This is who we are. This is what we do. Taller's skin changed color, a sign of fear in his species. But the mathematics, your mathematics are correct, Admiral Yuna interrupted. We will lose many ships. Many of our people will die. But we will take so many of them with us that they will regret ever hearing the name Earth. She stood up and walked to a different display. This one showed Project Phoenix. Humanity's total war plan. Our entire industrial capacity has been converted to war production. Every factory, every workshop, every capable person is building weapons. Civilian ships are being armed. Asteroid mining facilities are now weapon platforms. Our 16 colony worlds are mobilizing their populations. The numbers appeared on the screen. 2 billion volunteers, 30,000 ships under construction, 100,000 orbital defense platforms being built around Earth alone. We are not preparing for a battle, Admiral Yuna said. We are preparing for a war of extinction, either theirs or ours. Taller turned to Sergeant Wubin. The soldier had not spoken, but his presence filled the room. He was not tall or particularly muscular, but something in his eyes made Taller want to flee. And what is his role? Taller asked. Doctor. Nari smiled again. Sergeant Wu Bin commands our ground forces. He is developing tactics for boarding enemy ships and for landing on enemy worlds. Taller did not understand. Landing on enemy worlds? You mean invasion? Yes, we call it ground combat. Soldiers with weapons, fighting face to face with the enemy, looking them in the eyes as they die. The ambassador's color changed again, this time to a shade Taller did not recognize. Pure terror. That is barbaric, he whispered. The Vorith fight from space. All civilized species fight from space. Ground combat is effective, Wubin said. It was the first word he had spoken. His voice was quiet and calm. Ships can be replaced. Soldiers who have seen the enemy's face, who have heard their screams, who have smelled their blood. Those soldiers remember, and they make sure their enemies remember too. Taller looked at the 3 humans before him. He had studied thousands of species across millions of years. He had never been truly afraid of any of them. He was afraid now. I will return to the council with your answer, he said, his voice shaking. Is there anything else you wish me to tell them? Admiral Yuna thought for a moment. Tell them this. Do not help us. Do not hinder us. Simply stay out of our way. When the war is over, we will remember who stood with us and who stood against us. Choose wisely. Taller left Earth as quickly as he could. He drafted his report during the journey home, but his hands trembled as he wrote. His conclusion was simple. The humans cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be intimidated. They cannot be stopped. Our only hope is that when they finish with the Vorath, they remember we were not their enemy. Recommend full neutrality. Recommend complete cooperation with all human requests. Recommend we never, under any circumstances, give them a reason to turn their attention toward us. The council received his report in silence. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Great Galactic Council had nothing to say. Far away, on his command ship, Warlord Rix reviewed the intelligence about Earth's mobilization. His advisors urged caution. His generals suggested negotiation. His scientists presented the numbers again and again. They are one species against an empire, Rick said, dismissing their concerns. Mathematics does not lie. His chief scientist leaned closer and whispered. But Warlord. Mathematics also said their planet should have destroyed itself centuries ago. They should not exist. They survived despite mathematics. Perhaps mathematics does not apply to them. Rix laughed and ordered his fleets to advance on Earth. It was the last time he would laugh for a very long time. 6 months had passed since the war began, and the galaxy had never seen anything like it. The Vorath attacked with everything they had. They burned 4 human colonies to ash. 80 million people died, men, women, children. Entire families turned to dust in seconds. The Vorath expected humanity to break. They expected surrender, or at least hesitation. Instead, humanity went mad. Captain Tejo led the 7th Fleet in a campaign that military scholars would study for centuries. They called it the Hell March, and the name was earned in blood. His tactics made no sense to alien observers. When his ships were too damaged to fight, he did not retreat. He ordered the crews to evacuate, then flew the empty ships directly into enemy formations. Explosions bloomed across space like deadly flowers. When the Vorath outnumbered him, he fell back into asteroid fields and waited. His engineers had spent days planting mines among the rocks. The Vorath followed him in, confident in their numbers. They did not come out, but the most terrifying tactic was psychological. Tejo ordered his communications officers to broadcast human music into Vorath ships. Not peaceful music. War drums, screaming guitars, voices howling about death and glory. The Vorath had never heard anything like it. Then came the laughter. Human soldiers laughing as they fought, laughing as their ships burned around them, laughing as they charged into impossible odds. The sound echoed through Vorath communications, and experienced warriors began to flee before the battle even started. Lieutenant Hana documented everything. She had always loved history, and now she was living through events that would be remembered forever. She wrote in her journal every night, knowing that future generations would want to understand. We are not fighting to win. She wrote one evening, after a battle that cost them 3 ships but destroyed 30. We are fighting to make winning so expensive that the enemy will never try again. Every Vorath ship we destroy is a message. Every soldier we kill is a warning. We want them to look at the cost of this war and decide that Earth is not worth it. The ground war began in the 4th month. Sergeant Wubin led the first boarding action against a Vorath carrier. His team of 50 soldiers cut through the hull and entered the ship. The Vorath crew numbered over 2,000. They had never faced ground combat before. They did not understand how to fight in close quarters, face to face, breath to breath. Wubin's team lost 12 soldiers. The Vorath lost everyone. Survivors from nearby ships watched through cameras as the battle unfolded. They saw human soldiers take wounds that should have killed them and keep fighting. They saw humans carry their fallen friends' weapons and use both. They saw humans singing, actually singing as they moved through corridors filled with death. One Vorath captain recorded his final message before humans boarded his ship. They do not stop. You shoot them and they keep coming. You wound them and they laugh. They are not soldiers. They are something else, something wrong. Do not send more ships. There is no point. You cannot fight what does not care if it lives or dies. The message spread across the Vorath Empire. Morale crumbled. Crews refused to engage human ships. Entire fleets surrendered, rather than face boarding parties. The Galactic Council watched the war statistics change in real time. When the war started, the Vorath had 2 million ships against Earth's 10,000, a ratio of 200 to 1. After 3 months, it was 100 to 1. After 5 months, 50 to 1. After 6 months, the ratio was still shrinking. Human production had increased during the war. Their factories worked faster than before. Their engineers built more efficiently. Their scientists created deadlier weapons. Most species fell apart under the pressure of total war. Humans became stronger. High Arbiter Kell requested an explanation from his scientific advisors. They had studied human physiology, psychology, and history. Their answer was disturbing. Humans evolved under constant threat. The lead scientist explained. Their bodies produce chemicals during stress that increase strength, speed, and pain tolerance. They call it adrenaline. Their minds become more focused when facing death. They actually think more clearly when they are afraid. Kel shook his head. That makes no sense. Fear should paralyze, not empower. For most species, yes. But humans are different. They have spent their entire existence fighting each other. Their environment, diseases, predators. War is not strange to them. War is home. The report spread through the council. Delegates who had once dismissed humans as primitives now avoided mentioning them at all. The name Earth became a curse word in some languages. Meanwhile, Dr. Nari delivered humanity's terms for peace to the council. There were no terms. There would be no peace. The Vorath attacked human worlds, she said, her voice cold and steady. They killed human civilians. They made it personal. We do not forgive. We do not forget. The war ends when the Vorath Empire no longer exists. The council representatives begged her to reconsider. If humans destroyed the Vorath completely, other empires would notice. They would fear humanity. They might attack first, thinking it better to strike now than wait until humans grew stronger. Dr. Nari smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Let them try. We have fought outnumbered before. We have won while outnumbered before. And now we know we are not alone in the universe. Now we know there are threats among the stars. Do you think we will ever stop preparing? Do you think we will ever lower our guard? She leaned forward. Spread the word to every civilization in the galaxy. Humanity does not start wars, but we finish them. Every single time. The 6th month of the war ended with the Vorath losing their first major territory. 3 star systems fell to human forces in a single week. The population surrendered immediately, not because they feared death, but because they had heard what happened to those who resisted. Warlord Rick stared at the holographic map of his shrinking empire. 400,000 ships lost, half his generals dead or captured, his population rioting in the streets, demanding surrender. A message arrived from Admiral Yuna. It was short. We're coming. We don't stop. We don't sleep. We don't negotiate. See you soon. Rix turned off the display and sat alone in the darkness. For the first time in his long life, he understood what his victims had felt. He understood the terror of facing an enemy that could not be reasoned with, could not be bought off, could not be stopped. He had awakened something terrible. And now it was coming for him, in the silence of his command ship, surrounded by the wreckage of his dying empire. Warlord Rix finally learned how to feel fear. 1 year after the war began, the Vorath Empire controlled only their home system. Everything else was gone, conquered by humans or surrendered to avoid destruction. 2 million ships reduced to less than 50,000. An empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries brought to its knees by a species that had barely reached the stars. The final battle was coming. Human fleets surrounded the Vorath homeworld, waiting for the order to attack. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon humanity possessed was ready to end this war forever. But across the galaxy, the Galactic Council had a different concern. High Arbiter Kel called an emergency session. 12,000 delegates gathered, but this time they were not afraid of the Vorath. They were afraid of humanity. We must intervene, said a delegate from the Outer Rim. If humans destroy the Vorath completely, what stops them from doing the same to us? They have shown they can defeat a superior force, added another. Their industrial capacity has tripled during the war. Their military technology has advanced decades and months. They are no longer a primitive species. They are a power. Ambassador Taller listened to the debate in silence. He had studied humans longer than anyone. He knew their history, their psychology, their potential. And he knew what the Council did not understand. You are asking the wrong question, he finally said. The chamber fell quiet. You ask what stops humanity from attacking us. The answer is nothing. Nothing stops them except their own choice. And that is what makes them different from the Vorath. He stood and addressed the full council. The Vorath conquered because they wanted power. Humans fight because they must survive. The Vorath killed for pleasure. Humans kill because they see no other option. If we approach them with threats, they will respond with war. If we approach them with respect, they may choose peace. Kel made his decision. He would go to Earth personally. He would beg if necessary. The galaxy's future depended on convincing humanity to show mercy. 3 days later, Kel stood before Admiral Yuna in the same underground facility where Talor had failed to convince humans to surrender. The difference now was that Kel was not asking humans to surrender, he was begging them to stop. He lowered himself to his knees, something no High Arbiter had done in 50,000 years. "Please," he said, his ancient voice trembling. "Show mercy. End the war. Accept the Vorath surrender. The galaxy is watching. What you do next will define humanity's place among the stars for eternity." Admiral Yuna looked down at the kneeling alien. She felt no satisfaction in his humiliation. She felt only exhaustion. A year of war had aged her. A year of death had hardened her. 80 million of her people were dead, and nothing could bring them back. "They killed my people," she said quietly. "Children, families, entire colonies turned to ash. Tell me why I should let them live." Captain Tejo stepped forward. His uniform was worn from countless battles. His face carried scars that would never heal. But his eyes were clear. "We could destroy them," he said. "Every ship, every world, every citizen. We have the power." He paused. "But that would make us like them. We would become the monsters the galaxy already thinks we are." Lieutenant Hana spoke next. She had finished her history of the war, documenting every battle, every death, every act of heroism and horror. "I have studied every war in recorded history," she said. "Every species that conquered through complete destruction eventually suffered the same fate. Vengeance creates cycles that never end. If we destroy the Vorath completely, someone will eventually do the same to us. Our legacy should be justice, not extinction." Sergeant Wu Bin, the most feared soldier in the galaxy, spoke last. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "I have killed more beings than I can count. I have seen friends die in my arms. I have done things that will haunt me until I die." He looked at Admiral Yuna. "I have killed enough. Let them surrender. Let them live. Let them remember why." Admiral Yuna closed her eyes. The faces of the dead filled her mind, all 80 million of them. They deserved vengeance. They deserved justice. They deserved to be remembered, but they would not want her to become a monster in their name. She opened her eyes and looked at Dr. Nari. "Prepare terms of surrender." The terms were harsh but not impossible. The Vorath Empire would dissolve completely. Their military would be dismantled. Warlord Rix would stand trial for war crimes. Reparations would continue for 300 years. A permanent human military presence would remain in Vorath space to ensure compliance. And one final condition. Every generation of Vorath children would learn the history of the war. They would study what happened when their ancestors attacked Earth. They would understand the cost of aggression. They would remember. Rix surrendered the next day. He was brought before a human court, tried, and sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a cell, overlooking the memorial to the 80 million dead. He would see their names every day. He would never forget. The galaxy breathed again. The war was over. Humanity had won. 20 years passed. A young Vorath student traveled to Earth for the first time. His generation had grown up hearing stories about the war, studying the history, learning the lessons. He wanted to see the planet that had defeated his people. The Human War Memorial stood in a vast field of white stone. 80 million names were carved into walls that stretched for miles. Humans came here to remember, to grieve, to promise that such losses would never happen again. The student walked among the names, reading them silently. Each one was a person. Someone who had laughed, loved, dreamed, and died because his ancestors had attacked the wrong planet. He saw an old man sitting on a bench nearby. The man was human, his face weathered by time and experience. Something in his eyes looked familiar. The student realized with a shock that this was Sergeant Wu Bin, the legendary soldier who had terrified the Vorath military. Gathering his courage, the student approached. Wu Bin looked up at him without fear or anger. "I have studied the war," the student said carefully. "I read everything. I know what my people did. And I know what your people could have done in return." He hesitated. "You could have destroyed us completely. Why did you show mercy? Wu Bin looked at the memorial, at the names stretching toward the horizon. Because destruction is easy, he said. Any species can destroy. It takes no wisdom, no strength, no character. But living with your enemies, making peace with your anger, building something better from the ruins of war, that is hard. We chose hard. The student considered this. Are humans still dangerous? Wu Bin smiled. It was not a threatening smile, but it was not a comforting one either. We are always dangerous. We just choose not to be. Remember that. Years later, Ambassador Towler gave his final lecture to a gathering of young diplomats from across the galaxy. They had come to learn how to navigate interstellar politics, how to prevent wars, how to keep the peace. Towler was old, even by his species' long standards. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had witnessed horrors and wonders beyond imagination. And he had learned one truth that he needed to share. Let me give you the only advice that matters in galactic politics, he said. You may fight among yourselves. You may wage your little wars. You may compete for resources and territory and pride. He leaned forward, his ancient eyes burning with intensity. But if you have any wisdom at all, any survival instinct whatsoever, you will leave Earth out of it. Always. Forever. No exceptions. He paused, letting the words sink in. Because humans do not fight to win. They fight until there is nothing left to fight. They will lose everything. Their ships, their homes, their lives, and they will still keep coming. They will find weapons when they have none. They will create allies where there are enemies. They will turn defeat into victory through sheer stubborn refusal to accept reality. He stood, preparing to leave. And when the war is over, when they have won despite every odd against them, they will look at you with those strange human eyes and offer you mercy you do not deserve. That is the most terrifying thing of all. They could destroy you. They choose not to. He walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back one final time. Remember this lesson. Teach it to your children. Write it in your histories. Leave Earth out of your wars. Because humanity will always, always find a way. And across the galaxy, among the 1,000 different species who had heard the stories and learned the lessons, one truth was understood above all others. Never threaten Earth.